All right, Nick Wright, first things first, joining us live. All right, I don't know what the hell to do with Cincinnati, but I think one of my themes is.
Well, have them in there.
Okay.
That's what you do with them. You have them in the top 10. That's what you should do with them, but go ahead. Sorry.
One of my themes was Buffalo, Baltimore, Detroit. You can be great, but you don't know how to win big games. New England and Kansas City the last 20 years know how to win big games. I think the Rams have proven with Stafford and McVay, they know how to win big games. I don't know if San Francisco quite does. Is there anything out there outside of Cincinnati that you don't like?
So, listen, I didn't, you finally have the Chiefs in their rightful spot. I didn't love your tone and your apathy about it. You're worried about their apathy. Typically the herd hierarchy is a big crescendo up to number one. You got there almost begrudgingly. You're like, oh, yeah, and then there's Kansas City. It's hard to win 3 straight Super Bowls. Like, I don't know. But you got it right. Cincinnati I would have in there. I have one minor gripe and one major gripe.
Okay.
The minor gripe is I'm a little worried about so much Packers hype. This is a team that was 6-8 and then beat Bryce Young, Jaron Hall, Justin Fields to get into the playoffs, and now they are a very trendy Super Bowl pick. So I just feel like, progression in the NFL is not always linear. The Packers and Texans have very similar profiles. One-year starting quarterbacks kind of came out of nowhere last year, won a playoff game. NFL history tells me one of those two teams, at least, will stumble a bit. I would think it'd be more likely the Packers than the Texans. But my biggest gripe here, Colin, is not only with you, but with NFL media at large, which is someone explain to me why the Eagles fixed what was the worst 2-month collapse for an allegedly very good team in NFL history. They lost 6 out of 7. They lost to miserable teams. They appeared to quit minutes into a playoff game against the Tampa Bay Bucks and Baker Mayfield. And then this offseason, the big 3,000-word expose ended with the kicker of, when it comes to the coach-quarterback relationship, and I quote, well, I don't think they hate each other. Oh, well, in that case, I'm sure everything's fine. They're like, oh, their coordinators killed them last year. Well, I don't know. The 2 guys they hired, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, both got run out of town from their last 1-year spots. Kellen Moore saw Justin Herbert, and all of a sudden, Herbert has his worst year. Yes, he was banged up. The Dolphins, half of their offseason optimism is about how much the players disliked Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio hasn't had a great defensive, tenure post the Denver head coaching time. When his first year there, they were quite good. So that's not great. The single biggest offseason loss anyone suffered across the league was the retirement of Jason Kelce, who called out the protections, who was the key to the tush push, the key to their running game, and the greatest center arguably of all time. Why are the Eagles all of a sudden good again? No one's explained it to me. And so I would certainly have Cincinnati in the top 10. And of those 10 teams, the one I would most eagerly eject from there is Philadelphia, with maybe Green Bay, but probably just Philly.
I was saying this earlier, is that not all dynasties are captivating. Bama with Nick Saban wasn't. It was coach-led. The big fundamental in San Antonio was a snooze. And New England, frankly, efficiency. Take out Brady, they had almost no star power. Tom was the star. Sure. It was overachievers. But I said I was at an area of the country a little bit on vacation, and it was Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Ryan Gosling. And I said, the Chiefs are literally the anti-Patriots. They're leaning into access, trends, media, fun. And I said, and it's also great because it's middle of the country. And that's always been a real appeal to the NFL. Green Bay and Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, great. The New York teams stink. But it is interesting that this Kansas City team leans into movies and stardom, and it doesn't affect them. And why is that?
Well, I think that, listen, I think Andy Reid gets the credit for. because Andy is proving you can run the hardest training camp in the NFL, play your starters more than any other good team in the NFL, and still have your players adore you, love you, respect you, and have fun with you. And so I do think that there are things teams, just like I said for years, when the Patriots were running everything, and Belichick every year when he still had his fastball when it came to the draft, would trade down in the draft like, you know what more teams should do? Trade down. The smartest team's doing it. The Chiefs will go into this season with one player not fully participating in practice of their 53-man roster, Hollywood Brown, who took a bad hit in the first preseason game, and he'll be back by week 3 at the latest. They have the hardest training camp. They end up the most prepared typically in week 1 last year notwithstanding, and Andy can get them to practice as hard as they do and hit as much as they do because he then also says, hey, you know the ring around the rosy play that we screwed around with? Let's run that in a divisional game against the Raiders. Patrick feels comfortable going impromptu behind the back. And I truly believe they are going to run the Taylor Swift play at some point this year. Probably against the Raiders because they did that silly Kermit the Frog nonsense mocking the greatest quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes. And so I just think it is the perfect amount of players coach while being a hard ass is Andy Reid. So I think he gets the full credit for it. And that is, that along with having the most talented player in the history of the league in Patrick Mahomes is why they're going to win their 3rd straight Super Bowl.
I want to close with this. And I said this near the top of the show today. I said the WNBA's got a problem that's not really a problem. They've made it a problem, and now they can't avoid it, is that Caitlin Clark is way better, way sooner than anybody wants to admit. It took Bryce Harper a couple years. Outside of Asia Wilson, on any night, you're like, is she the best player? I mean, now, playmaking, shooting, pace, and the league, to its credit, has finally, slowly gotten their arms around it. Their All-Star game's already in Indiana. They announced it. They finally figured out, wow, this is Taylor Swift and sneakers. I'm not sure the players have. She's the most targeted player for hard fouls. Are they doing enough? What do you make of kind of this, a little bit of tribalism, a little
So
insular?
I don't mind the hard fouls. That's part of basketball. Okay. And she's a trash talker.
Yeah.
She brings some of that onto herself. She's young. She's brash. She trash talks. She's awesome. She's going. So that part I think almost will be policed in and of itself. I don't think she's going to get injured. And I don't think we need to, the league needs to put out a mandate about anything like that. So the players stuff doesn't bother me. What does bother me is some of the people I deeply respect their basketball credentials, their basketball history, their commitment to basketball and women's basketball, I think have really not covered themselves in glory with some of this commentary. And I'm going to read you a quote, Colin, if I may, from, again, this person might know more about about women's basketball than any person who's ever lived, and that's Gino Auriemma. Gino Auriemma was on with my pal Dan Patrick a couple months ago when the Fever were struggling. And this was the quote. This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality in the league, and she's a rookie. This rookie class isn't even one of the best classes in the last 10 years. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. She's not quick enough to get away from the physicality. End quote. Gino, just say you're a UConn guy and you thought this was going to be Paige and instead it's Caitlin. Like, hey, folks out there, just say, hey, Angel Reese in a lot of years would be the rookie of the year. She set the all-time rebounding record. Don't say, let's just have it be a tie. Call them co-rookies of the year. No, let's not do that. So there's so many things at play. There's like a UConn bias that to me, Twitter's algorithm is really doing its best to inflame any type of, racial dichotomy between Angel and Caitlin.
Sure.
And there's a lot of, to me, old-time players who are doing a lot like what the NBA old-time players do, which is, God dog it, it's better in my era.
Yeah.
These guys are soft, they can't do it. And what it's creating is, in my opinion, just some asinine commentary. I was on your show 2 months ago and said, look out for the fever post-Olympics. Caitlin will be rested. They have no more back-to-backs. They have no more 3 and 5 nights. The WNBA gave them all their hard games early. You could, if you were being fair, you could see this train coming down the tracks. And too many people, in my opinion, I think because they don't want to get yelled at by bad actors on the internet, are lying about what's in front of them, which is Angel Reese is having an A- rookie season. And Caitlin Clark is having arguably the greatest rookie season in the history of the league, certainly on the short list. And all of a sudden, the Fever are a dangerous team. There should be 2 unanimous awards in women's basketball this year. Asia Wilson should get every single MVP vote there is. That's undeniable. And Caitlin Clark should get every single Rookie of the Year vote. That's also undeniable. And if you're denying either, I either doubt your basketball acumen or your honesty in what you're actually saying.
Yeah. Nick Wright gets the Chiefs on Thursday. And so depending on the outcome, it's actually one of the few games. It's one of the few games I feel semi-strongly about. I like Kansas City. Because they've kind of Rashee Rice is going to play, and they brought Juju Smith-Schuster and Worthy, and so I kind of feel good about them. Plus, they lost to Detroit last year in the opener, so they'll take it seriously. And Andy's let them play this summer, so it was a hard camp.
It's going to be great.
Yep, can't wait for it. Nick Wright.
And for Baltimore, I know it's week 1, Colin. Must win. But it's a must win for Baltimore. Well, it's a must win.
Psychologically.
You can't lose. Psychologically, it's a must-win. Yeah. I'm just telling you, a week 1 elimination game for Baltimore, tough spot. It's what the NFL put them in. Sorry, it is what it is.
All right. Nick Wright, good seeing you, buddy.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.